Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shills, death slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And apparently, all the liberals and the Democrats, including so-called stand-up comedians, late show nights, the liberal media, and liberal politicians, all got the same memo, and that's the tactic of declaring that Antifa doesn't exist and that this target uh, is a hoax and a fake one. And certainly, Antifa is not centrally controlled, and it doesn't appear to be nationwide. And this move by Trump to designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization seems a little dramatic. But that said, there are some issues with Antifa. And the first one, of course, is the fact that it is real. It may be small and disorganized, but it is a real thing. And as we saw from the BLM riots, it does have its potential dangers. And one of the things that's interesting to me, I was at the 1999 WTO riots slash protests here in Seattle, and there was a group that came up from Portland, and while the rest of the demonstration was relatively peaceful, the component that came up from Portland was trashing all the stores and creating a lot of damage and agitating the crowd. And anyway, at the time, they called themselves anarchists, and interestingly enough, the uniforms that they wore, all black with their faces covered, etc., seems to be the antecedent to Antifa. So they changed from anarchists to anti-fascists. So that's one observation. But they are a group, and like I say, they don't necessarily have a lot of centralized leadership or organization, but there's enough there. They have a flag, they have uniforms, they have official colors, they have local chapters, most notably in Portland, of course. They have meeting places, they have email signups. There's clear directives for all their members, and there's even a Antifa handbook. And I did a search on Amazon and eBay, and of course, there's a ton of Antifa related swag. So there's a whole sector of commercial society and certain media outlets and alternative news that readily recognize Antifa as a real thing. And then stories appear occasionally. There was supposed to be a parade down in Portland, and Antifa actually sent in threats that they would perpetrate violence if the parade was held, and the parade was canceled. And then we also saw a video recently of Antifa members stocking up supplies in Portland in nearby locations so they could get ready to do what they do down in Portland. Um, so we see a lot of Antifa activity, and it seems like a lot of it is centralized in Portland. For example, I live in Seattle, and we're just a couple hundred miles north of Portland, and there's certain contingents of Antifa here, but Portland seems to be the real hotbed. So that is certainly one issue, that Antifa is not a nationwide phenomenon. It doesn't have nationwide networks and organization. It doesn't have nationwide leaders, but it does have leadership. And of course, we've seen two of the main leaders of the Rose City Antifa in Portland recently moved to Europe once Trump designated them as a domestic terrorist organization. So there is leadership. So so I guess my point is that Antifa, in a lot of ways, isn't some kind of national threat, although there are certainly people that prescribe to Antifa and manage to show up in a lot of different places in the U.S. It seems to be pretty localized in Portland, but I definitely dismiss the idea that it's not a real thing, and they have all the attributes of a real thing, and they're definitely a threat. I think it's a little dramatic to call them a domestic terrorist organization, but they are a threat, and they're very violent, and it is something to be taken seriously. So, so as usual, something like Antifa is not true or false. It's something in the middle. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?